June 2015. A heavy atmosphere envelops the slopes of Black Mountain in Harlan County, Kentucky, where dense old-growth forest conceals secrets that time seemed to have buried forever. The beam from a local ranger's flashlight cuts through the cold, damp darkness of the leaf litter, illuminating something no one was supposed to find after more than 2 decades. Center: I need immediate assistance at Black Mountain and request the forensics unit at the scene. His voice echoes through the thick fog, reverberating in the silent space as if awakening an entire buried past. What began as a routine forest patrol following a report of illegal hunting activity has now become something entirely different, a discovery that could answer questions haunting Kentucky for 25 years. Human skeletal remains scattered beneath the tree canopy, and nearby, a small personal item faded by time, an item that once belonged to Emily Ward, the young woman who vanished from Pine Mountain Lodge on a September night in 1990 and was never seen again. For nearly a quarter of a century, Emily's disappearance existed only as unanswered questions. A short trip up the mountain, a motel room with strange signs, 2 companions who checked out early the next morning with an explanation no one truly believed, a family that kept their daughter's chair empty at every holiday gathering, a bedroom door that was never fully closed. Before we continue this shocking story, take a second to subscribe and like the video. Your support helps forgotten cases find the light again and ensures you don't miss the next stories. Because the discovery at Black Mountain is not just the end of a missing person case, it is the first domino in a chain of events that will expose the mistakes, the lies, and the secrets buried for years in a quiet mountain community in America. When authorities finally followed the trails and made an arrest, it was not an anonymous drifter or a shadowy stranger. It was someone the community knew, someone who had been trusted, someone who had lived among them for more than 2 decades while carrying a horrifying truth. The Emily Ward case is not just a mystery reawakened. It is proof of a family's unrelenting persistence, of investigators who refused to let the file gather dust, and of modern forensic science that finally gave a voice to a victim silenced for too long. It is also the story of a community torn apart. When Emily vanished in 1990, suspicion spread through Harlan County like wildfire in dry season. Neighbors eyed each other with distrust. Whispers replaced trust. The search for Emily exposed the cracks that already existed beneath the surface of a small American town. Those cracks would burst open when the truth was finally revealed after more than 20 years. What makes this case particularly haunting is that the answer was always so close. The prime suspect was interviewed in the very first days, then walked free, attended Emily's memorial services, looked her family in the eye, and maintained an innocent facade while hiding the unimaginable. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below. I always want to know how far these stories reach and how they connect us. Tonight, we'll go back to September 1990, retrace an investigation frozen for years, and uncover the shocking turning point that brought closure to one of Kentucky's most haunting missing persons cases. This is a story of loss, persistence, prolonged deception, and justice delayed, but not denied. September 1990, Harlan County, Kentucky, is covered in the characteristic thin mist of the Appalachian Mountains, where narrow roads wind along hillsides and tall pines stand motionless in the cooling air. On the afternoon of the 14th, a silver sedan with Lexington plates appears on the road leading to Pine Mountain. Inside are 3 people: Emily Ward, 31, an office worker; Cole Maddox, her ex-boyfriend; and Shannon Reeves, the woman traveling with Cole. They stop at Pine Mountain Lodge, a small isolated motel with a narrow parking lot and a single-story row of rooms facing the forest. Around 5:50 p.m., they enter the front desk to check in and are assigned room 15, the Inns unit, more secluded than the others. After bringing their luggage inside, the 3 barely leave the room except for a quick meal at the small diner across the road, returning around 8 p.m. From that point on, no other guests see them leave. Around 12:40 a.m., faint sounds in the hallway are noted by a guest in a neighboring room: footsteps, a door closing, nothing enough to draw attention. But the only significant observation occurs at 1:15 a.m. A night shift employee in the rear lobby area sees Emily step out of room 15, walk down the hallway toward the stairs leading to the parking area. There is no sign she is accompanied, no sign she is carrying luggage. This is the last time Emily is seen at Pine Mountain Lodge. From that moment until dawn, no one sees Emily return to the room or leave the motel through the main exit. Around 9 a.m. on the 15th, Cole and Shannon appear at the front desk to check out. They leave in the same car they arrived in the day before, without Emily. The desk clerk completes the checkout without questions, noticing nothing unusual. By noon, Emily's family in Lexington begins to worry after repeated unanswered calls, completely out of character for her daily habit of staying in touch. By late afternoon, after calling the lodge to check and receiving no confirmation that Emily is still there, worry turns to alarm. By the evening of September 15, 1990, they decide action is needed and officially report Emily Ward missing to the police. Upon receiving the call, the Harlan County Sheriff's Office immediately records the case as a missing adult and begins the initial verification process. The duty officer collects all family-provided data, the last contact time, trip plans, and the fact that Emily had no history of leaving on her own before forwarding the information to the field investigation unit for the next steps. That night, an officer is assigned to contact Pine Mountain Lodge directly to verify the 3 Lexington guests' registration. The desk clerk confirms the details. Emily Ward, Cole Maddox, and Shannon Reeves arrived on the afternoon of September 14, registered under Cole Maddox's name, and checked out on the morning of September 15 with only 2 people present. When asked about the last time Emily was seen, beyond confirming she was not present to check out, they have no further information because the overnight shift was handled by the rear lobby staff. From the family-provided data, police record identifying features, average height, brown hair, last known clothing including a dark green thin jacket and jeans, plus details about her wallet and vehicle. During information compilation, investigators note that Emily had no unusual financial activity or communication before losing contact. This narrows the assessment of voluntary disappearance. Next, an officer visits the lodge to check the registration log and confirm check-in and check-out times, clarifying their presence and movements within the property. The clerk notes directly in the report, Room 15 was checked in at 5:52 p.m. on September 14 and checked out at 9:03 a.m. the next day by 2 people. From all initial data, police construct a preliminary timeline. Emily is present on September 14 at check-in. A witness sees her leave the room around 1:15 a.m. On the 15th, she does not appear in the morning. No record of leaving via the main exit. No response to family calls from noon on the 15th, and she does not participate in checkout with the other 2. This timeline is marked incomplete and requires further verification from additional sources, but it provides a temporary framework to pinpoint when Emily went missing. After completing basic verification, the Harlan County Sheriff's Office opens an official missing person file for Emily Ward and assigns a case number per county standards. The initial report indicates it cannot yet be classified under any specific risk category, but the elements are sufficient to require on-site inspection and initial data collection at Pine Mountain Lodge. With the file now in the official investigation phase, authorities understand that next steps must be taken as quickly as possible before mountain weather erases outdoor traces. For this reason, first thing the next morning, the investigation's top priority is to mobilize search teams and deploy sweeps around the lodge in close radius. A patrol group is divided into 3 teams, each assigned a direction based on Harlan County's mountainous terrain, the trail leading up to Pine Mountain Peak, the rear parking lot area, and the dense forest strip along the small stream to the east. Their task is to scour a radius of approximately 300 to 500 meters around Room 15 for any sign that Emily may have left the area during the night or early morning. The search leader uses a topographic map to create an initial sweep diagram, marking accessible areas, steep sections with slip risk, and unofficial paths created by visitors in the woods. Particular attention is given to the ground behind the room row, where fresh tread marks appear mixed, men's and women's shoe prints of unknown origin. Team members record this detail but cannot yet link it to the victim, given the weekend guest volume at Pine Mountain Lodge. As teams enter the eastern dense forest, they note irregularities in the leaf litter areas that appear recently swept hard, exposing darker soil beneath. Though no clear signs of struggle or fight exist, those spots are photographed and marked on the temporary diagram for later comparison. Meanwhile, the parking lot team checks access points, noting mud distribution on the asphalt road surface, apparently from tires that moved out after the previous night's light rain. This could be entirely normal, but it is still reported for comparison with traffic cameras or hotel staff. During priority mapping, police designate high-probability areas for expanded search: the streamside forest strip, trail intersections, the area behind an abandoned mill about a quarter-mile from the lodge, and the western slope where terrain changes abruptly, easily becoming a spot where someone could fall or become trapped unseen. These are color-coded by risk level: red for areas with direct possible relevance, yellow for areas to check after clearing the closed radius, green for supplemental areas only if more information emerges. One trace recorded in the afternoon is a faint, elongated drag mark on soft soil about 150 meters north of the lodge. The mark is indistinct in shape, possibly from a branch or dragged object. The search team marks the location, measures its length, collects adhering soil samples, and submits the report to the technical team. No one claims it is related, but it cannot be ignored. Another anomaly is a single small shoe print on the trail leading down to the stream, with no return or continuation prints. The team leader judges it may be old or weathered away, but it is carefully recorded. By late afternoon, the priority area map is preliminarily completed. The lodge is set as the center point, with 3 search rings drawn at 300, 700, and 1200 meters. The first ring has been almost fully checked. The second is scheduled for the next day with additional manpower from local rescue services. The third will only be opened with clear indications that Emily may have left the close radius. All these details are entered into the initial file as required procedure for missing person searches in mountainous terrain. Police draw no conclusions from the traces, but every detail is coded, stored, and entered into the system for later timeline reconstruction. Upon completing the day's task, the search leader reports that no personal items, clothing, documents, or any biological signs belonging to Emily were found in the entire initial sweep area. This forces the search teams to consider that traces may not be outside the property, but could be inside the lodge structure itself. Team leaders request that Pine Mountain Lodge staff provide walkway diagrams, rear service paths, and details of any obscured areas to rule out missing critical signs. By day's end, the directive is issued. Once the close radius area is verified negative, focus must shift to the last space where Emily was recorded present. It is precisely the unusual silence around the lodge area that makes the next step unavoidable. The crime scene examination team is immediately dispatched, redirecting from outdoor search to evaluating the interior of room 15, where the 3 stayed before Emily vanished. Following 1990 protocol, room access is conducted with maximum preservation of original condition. The hallway is temporarily sealed. The entire door is photographed before opening. The lock condition, hinges, room number plate, and any visible scratches are recorded. When the door is opened with a spare key provided by the lodge, no one enters immediately. Instead, the technical team takes a series of wide-angle shots from the threshold to record the original layout without disturbing potential evidence. Inside, the room remains in a partially clean state but incomplete, as housekeeping staff had noticed anomalies, immediately reported to management, and stopped work. On the stripped bedsheet surface, the examination team notes faint pale stains as if something wet or a large amount of liquid had pooled earlier. These are close-up photographed, measured, and surface fiber samples are collected for absorption or chemical residue testing. On the floor near the foot of the bed, a small piece of wood detached from the bed frame lies askew, with no natural impact signs. It is cataloged as mechanical damage evidence, potentially indicating abnormal forceful activity in a confined space. In the bathroom, the team detects a strong cleaning chemical odor, not the type normally used by the lodge's housekeeping department, according to management, which raises the possibility someone attempted to wipe a specific surface. The sink has fresh scratches, still slightly damp around the metal rim, marked and sampled for residual solution. The bathroom floor also shows areas with differing reflectivity under low-angle flashlight, suggesting aggressive scrubbing at certain spots. All such areas are recorded via angled photography and floor plan sketching. Near the window area, the curtain is pulled unevenly, and one curtain rod shows slight bending as if from uneven force. This is listed as physical deformation evidence, potentially related to pulling or impact activity. On the carpet, right at the point beneath the curtain rod joint, there is a small circular stain about 3 centimeters in diameter, darker than the surrounding carpet. Specialists note this could be a deep penetrated stain that was wiped but remained, and they cut a carpet section of regulation size for analysis. The nightstand still holds an upside-down glass tumbler, quite clean, but with uneven cloudy residue inside. It is sealed in a personal beverage evidence bag to determine if it contained any substance. Nearby is a stack of travel brochures and a Pine Mountain area map. The map has an unusual crease and a crumpled corner as if hastily opened and refolded. Though this could be normal behavior, the team collects it because it directly relates to determining the 3 people's movement intentions. Under the bed, technicians find a small dark fabric scrap of unknown origin, possibly from clothing or an item. It is picked up with sterile forceps and immediately sealed. In the bathroom, trash or wet paper towels, some still carrying a scent matching the unusual cleaning solution noted at the sink. All paper towels are collected for fingerprint or chemical trace testing. Inside the closet, there is a drag mark along the interior wood surface, as if a heavy object was placed and then pulled out, inconsistent with typical travel luggage. This wood section is photographed, and the drag mark measured to assess force type. The examination team uses fingerprint powder on the room door handle, bathroom door, desk edge, and bed frame. Most prints are faint or overlapping, not sharp enough for immediate identification, but all recorded for later processing. Upon completing documentation, the technical team compiles an evidence list: stained carpet section, detached wood piece, swabbed cleaning solution, wet paper towels, glass tumbler, dark fabric scrap, sink residue sample, and related photos and position diagrams. Each item is sequentially coded, sealed in 1990 standard packaging, labeled with date, time, location, collector, and intended analysis purpose. The team also prepares a scene report describing the room's condition prior to intervention, furniture layout diagram, anomalies, and the feasibility that room 15 was the site of significant activity related to Emily Ward's disappearance. In the final step of the examination, the team leader lists items requiring in-depth lab analysis, determining the nature of stains, identifying cleaning chemicals, tracing biological evidence on soft items, physical examination of deformed objects, and matching collected fingerprints. All are noted but not yet actioned, as the next step awaits official approval from the Investigation Command before expanding analysis scope. Immediately after completing the evidence collection in room 15, the investigative team moved to the critical step, separating the statements of Cole Maddox and Shannon Reeves to cross-reference information and establish an official timeline. Both were summoned to the Harlan County Sheriff's Office the following morning, with instructions not to communicate prior to questioning. Cole was brought into the first interview room. He stated that the three had come to Pine Mountain Lodge for a weekend getaway, checked in around 6 o'clock in the evening on September 14th, placed their belongings in the room, and then went to eat dinner at a diner near the trail. They returned to the room around 10 o'clock at night. Cole claimed everything was normal until after midnight, when Emily said she wanted to step outside to get some air because she felt stifled, and left the room sometime between 1:10 and 1:20 a.m. He insisted he did not follow her, believing she just needed a little space alone. When asked about when he went to sleep and woke up, Cole stated he fell back asleep right after Emily left, then woke around 8 o'clock in the morning when Shannon shook him awake to pack and check out. Shannon, when questioned separately, admitted there had been a small argument between her and Cole that evening, but denied any conflict involving Emily. Shannon stated that Emily left the room in a quiet but not distressed state, and that she did not know where Emily went. When asked about the time they left the lodge, Shannon said the two of them checked out around 9 o'clock in the morning and assumed Emily had left earlier or had caught a ride back to Lexington. The fact that both gave similar details on timing but very vague descriptions of Emily's actions prompted the investigative team to note the need for cross-checking with independent witnesses. After the statements from the two, police moved to interview hallway witnesses. A guest in room 12 stated that around a little after 1 o'clock in the morning, he heard the door to room 15 open and saw a brown-haired woman step out. He heard no arguing or commotion, but remembered the woman walking rather quickly toward the hallway leading to the rear courtyard. Another witness in room 18 reported hearing heavy footsteps and the sound of something being dragged around 3 o'clock in the morning, but was unsure if it was related because the sounds were muffled by wind and tree branches hitting each other. Although the information was unclear, the investigative team still recorded it because it raised the possibility that someone had moved in the area after Emily was last seen. Next, police took statements from the night desk clerk and housekeeping staff. The overnight desk clerk confirmed not seeing Emily leave the lodge through the main lobby entrance between 100 and 3 a.m., and no guests were checked in or out during that window. The rear service door was on automatic lock, but staff admitted that guests sometimes propped it open to smoke and did not fully close it. The investigative team flagged this factor because it opened the possibility that Emily left the premises through an unmonitored exit. The housekeeper who discovered the anomalies in room 15 stated that when she entered the room around 10:30 a.m., she noticed more paper towels than usual in the trash and a strong cleaning chemical smell in the bathroom. She had intended to clean thoroughly, but stopped immediately upon seeing the dark stained carpet patch and reported it to management per procedure. Once all statements were compiled, the investigative team constructed an official timeline by hour, 17:52, the three check-in. 22:2, the group returns after dinner. 1001, Tantantis Energy leaves room 15 per statements from both. 1015, room 12 witness sees a woman leave the hallway. 100301, no record of Emily at the main lobby, rear exit possibly left ajar. 03 and 3 daughters, room 18 witness hears dragging sound. 018 3 daughters, Cole and Shannon wake up. 09 3 the two check out. 10:30, housekeeper discovers anomalies in the room. 12 Highbone, family attempts contact but receives no response. 18 South, family reports Emily missing to police. After piecing together the statements, several gaps in the timeline became evident. The first gap was from the time Emily left the room until the room 12 witness saw her. The window was extremely narrow but had no official confirmation from any camera system because Pine Mountain Lodge in 1990 was not equipped with recording devices. The second gap was from 012 to around 03 a.m., where no direct witness saw Emily, but information emerged about a dragging sound. The third gap was from 032 09 a.m., a period with no description of any movement by anyone in the group, and no explanation for why the room showed signs of aggressive cleaning, yet the two who checked out made no mention of it. The fourth gap was from the time they left Pine Mountain Lodge until the family discovered the lack of contact. This segment had no binding evidence, forcing the investigative team to continue analysis. Upon finalizing the timeline, police assessed that many facts did not align with Cole and Shannon's statements, particularly the physical traces in the room that they failed to mention. The investigative team noted that the official timeline was still only a rough framework, needing verification through evidence and deeper cross-referencing. But it already clearly showed that Emily's disappearance could not be explained solely by her leaving on her own volition. Immediately after the official timeline revealed a series of inexplicable gaps, the Harlan County Sheriff's Office decided to expand the search radius beyond the immediate vicinity of Pine Mountain Lodge, shifting to sweeps of the entire eastern and northern slopes of Pine Mountain terrain that was complex, with many old trails and unofficial paths created by locals or hunters. Reinforcements included the county's mountain rescue team, a K-9 unit specialized in missing persons, support from volunteer searchers, and rangers familiar with the terrain. The goal of this phase was to determine whether Emily Ward could have left the lodge area via any natural path, or whether she might have been taken in a direction not observable from the hallway or lobby. Teams were divided by terrain sections. Team A swept along the northern slope, dense forest with a few clearings. Team B followed the trail down to the stream. Team C checked areas with large boulders and low brush commonly used as rest stops on hikes. Team D scoured small trails looping behind the old mill site. Each team carried area markers, radios, and topographic maps to avoid missing sections. Over the first 2 days of expanded search, no direct trace was found indicating Emily had moved into the woods after leaving room 15. The K-9 unit did not pick up any sustained scent trail, detecting only a few weak scent points judged too faint to confirm a path. Along the trails, no personal items, clothing fragments, or women's footprints matching the size described by family were found. Officers recorded scattered shoe prints, but all appeared to belong to earlier hunters or hikers. None were fresh enough to match the night Emily vanished. This sharply reduced the likelihood that she left the area voluntarily. One hypothesis raised early was that Emily might have left Kentucky on her own to return to Lexington or travel to nearby areas. But after checking gas stations along Route 1 team, convenience stores around the county, and cross-referencing information from local residents, police found no reports of a young woman walking or hitchhiking between 110 and 6 IG. The county's intra-county bus system, in 1990, did not operate at night, and no taxi drivers reported picking up a passenger matching Emily's description. There were also no records of cabin rentals or small motels showing Emily might have left the lodge to seek other lodging. Police checked Harlan County Hospital in case she had been in an accident and admitted without identification, but no patient matched her description, with each piece of evidence ruled out. The search leader included in the report that there is no realistic evidence supporting the hypothesis that the victim left the Pine Mountain Lodge area under her own control and volition. Another hypothesis considered was that Emily might have left the group due to personal conflict, but the fact that she left all her belongings in the room, no wallet, no identification, no spare clothing, made this scenario nearly implausible. Family members also confirmed Emily had never exhibited behavior of running away without notice, had no history of mental health issues, and had no motive to abandon her job or life in Lexington. Police continued sweeping the Western Trail area, where a sudden steep drop led to a deep rock crevice. There they found some broken branches and lightly disturbed soil, but the traces were too old to date. However, with no items or identifying signs linked to Emily, the area was marked insufficient grounds for conclusion and documented. When the search radius reached 2 miles from the lodge with still no evidence supporting voluntary movement by the victim, the investigation command concluded that the probability of Emily leaving Pine Mountain Lodge of her own free will was extremely low, especially given the timeline's unusual gaps and the cleaning traces in the room suggesting external intervention. Police officially ruled out the scenarios: voluntary departure by personal vehicle, hitchhiking, natural accident with self-relocation from the area, and planned flight. Having eliminated these hypotheses, the Harlan County Sheriff's Office was compelled to evaluate the possibility of foul play harm inflicted by another person. Based on the evidence collected in Room 15, the unusual stains, signs of aggressive cleaning, and inconsistencies in Cole and Shannon's statements, an internal report concluded, at this stage, the likelihood of foul play is rated very high. This conclusion was not made public but guided all subsequent investigative steps. Emily did not simply vanish. She was likely intervened with, controlled, or harmed in the short time after leaving Room 15. That assessment forced the investigative team to shift to a deeper approach, focusing on the relationships among the 3 people in the room and the anomalies arising from the scene. Immediately after ruling out Emily's voluntary departure from the area and identifying foul play as the central investigative focus, the investigative team expanded scrutiny of the relationships among the 3 occupants of Room 15 to determine the risk of internal conflict and the degree of involvement of Cole, Maddox, and Shannon Reeves. Personal records for both were pulled per 1990 procedure, checking criminal histories, domestic violence reports, police intervention records, and workplace personnel files. Cole had no criminal record but had received an administrative warning for disorderly conduct during a bar argument in Lexington in 1988. The incident did not lead to charges but was noted in city police reports. Shannon had no criminal record, but a 1987 report showed police were called to her apartment due to loud yelling between her and an ex-boyfriend. No injuries, no criminal filing. Although not directly establishing high risk, both incidents were listed under notable conflict history. The investigative team continued contacting friends, co-workers, and acquaintances of the 3 to map relationships. Through multiple statements, police noted the trio had known each other for about a year. Emily and Shannon were co-workers at a document storage center in Lexington, while Cole was Shannon's longtime friend from high school. One co-worker reported witnessing a heated argument between Shannon and Cole at work after a group gathering, involving Cole displaying controlling behavior when Emily joined a new friend circle. Another stated that Shannon sometimes appeared jealous when Emily and Cole spoke comfortably together. However, the level of tension was unclear and had never escalated to public conflict. When cross-referencing these statements with the timeline of the incident night, the investigative team paid particular attention to Shannon's admission of a small argument with Cole on the evening of September 14, though she provided no details. Police also noted a comment from an acquaintance. Both Shannon and Cole tended to change behavior when drinking. Cole became withdrawn, while Shannon became emotional and quick-tempered. This data was factored into behavioral risk assessment, as the group had consumed alcohol during dinner before returning to Room 15. Another element of special note was the description. Emily left the room quietly, that both Cole and Shannon stated, yet they could not agree on why she left, nor explain why they did not search for her the next morning, despite realizing she had not returned. This was deemed inconsistent with normal companion behavior and recorded under unnatural post-event behavior. When asked about relationships outside the trip, one of Emily's friends provided information that a few weeks before the trip, Emily had shared feeling uncomfortable when Shannon and Cole pulled her into unrelated arguments, and that the two sometimes placed her in awkward situations. Although no evidence showed direct conflict between Emily and either of them, this statement helped broaden the assessment of potential motives. The investigative team also checked landline phone records for all 3. No calls occurred between them on the night of the incident, but one notable detail emerged. On September 13th, Shannon called Emily twice, and an acquaintance stated the calls may have concerned changes to the trip plan. This was flagged as requires further verification, but lacks sufficient data for conclusion. Additionally, police recorded Cole's behavioral psychology traits from witness statements, Some describe him as easily stressed when questioned about responsibility or feeling disrespected. This trait was classified by the team as potential risk under pressure. For Shannon, police noted the tendency toward strong emotional reactions, sometimes difficult to control, especially when combined with alcohol. When comparing the two statements about the incident night, the investigative team observed that both described events in a very smooth manner, but lacked everyday details. For example, neither recalled exactly what Emily was wearing when she left, despite claiming they saw her step out. The risk level was assessed as cannot rule out direct or indirect involvement. In the preliminary conclusion of this investigative phase, the team leader wrote, "The relationship among the three contains simmering conflict elements. Cole and Shannon's behavioral histories included incidents that could elevate the risk of impulsive behavior. Statements showed signs of avoiding detail, and both fall into the group requiring close scrutiny when evaluating foul play potential." The relationship analysis clearly showed that Emily's disappearance did not occur in a context of complete harmony among the three, and the level of involvement of the two companions could not be downplayed at this stage. After nearly 3 months of continuous investigation with expanded search areas, witness interviews, evidence collection from Room 15, and review of all possibilities related to the relationships among the three, the Harlan County Sheriff's Office compiled all data to assess the feasibility of continuing the investigation under 1990 real-world conditions. The summary report noted that more than 10 square miles of mountainous forest had been swept multiple times, but no biological traces, personal items, or independent witnesses were found, proving Emily Ward left Pine Mountain Lodge under her own initiative. The traces discovered in the room-stained carpet section, strong cleaning chemical odor, displaced items, detached bed frame wood piece, while suggesting possible scene cleaning or disturbance were, given 1990 forensic analysis capabilities, insufficient to prove a crime without a body or direct witness. Forensic specialists at the time lacked the means to isolate trace samples on carpet fibers or paper towels. These items were sealed but stored, awaiting more advanced analysis technology in the future. Cross-comparison of Cole and Shannon's statements yielded no breakthrough. Despite minor inconsistencies and unusual timeline gaps, no objective evidence was sufficient to charge or compel deeper cooperation. Harlan County also lacked traffic cameras or hotel surveillance to reconstruct anyone's movements on the night Emily disappeared. Tips from local residents, gas stations, convenience stores, and hospitals showed no appearance by Emily after 20 a.m. All investigative avenues converged on the same point: no body, no witness, no definitive trace. In the final evaluation document sent to the district attorney's office, police determined the case showed signs of foul play but lacked direct criminal evidence for prosecution. Requests for expanded search warrants on Cole and Shannon's property were not approved due to insufficient legal grounds. The search team also concluded that if a body existed, it was highly likely moved out of the Pine Mountain Lodge area beyond the initial search perimeter. Continuing large-scale mobilization was no longer feasible due to vast terrain, lack of new leads, and limited county resources. By late December 1990, the search commander decided to suspend all wide-area search operations, maintaining only periodic checks at select high-risk locations. An official record was created: victim not located, body location undetermined, final confirmed presence of victim not established after departure from room. With no new leads emerging over consecutive weeks, the case was removed from active regular investigation and transferred to the county's cold case unit per protocol for prolonged missing persons cases lacking grounds for charges. Evidence collected from Room 15 was repackaged to long-term sealing standards, categorized by biological, chemical, and physical groups, assigned storage codes, stored in the evidence preservation room under stable environmental conditions to prevent sample degradation. The investigation report stated clearly, evidence holds potential value but cannot be analyzed with current technology. This became the pivotal factor that caused the case to stall. The carpet samples, paper towels, bathroom evidence, bent curtain rod, glass tumbler, and fabric scrap of unknown origin were labeled pending future testing, a rare but occasionally used designation in cases where the nature of the crime remained undetermined but abnormal signs existed. The cold case unit accepted the file in early 1991, reorganized all information, coded the statements, and placed the case on the unresolved list, awaiting new technology or new witnesses. During this period, the assigned investigator noted that Emily Ward's disappearance lacked solid investigative anchors, meaning no effective open direction remained for pursuit. No body, no confirmed blood traces, no consistent biological sample, no witness to violent behavior, and the two last with Emily left no clear legal gaps. From a disappearance with suspicious indicators, the case gradually became buried under the evidentiary shortages of the pre-modern DNA era. When the file was placed in cold case storage, Emily Ward's disappearance officially became one of Harlan County's unsolved cases, existing in limbo between suspicion and silence, with no viable investigative path to reopen in the near future. By 2014, more than 2 decades after Emily Ward's disappearance was placed in storage, the Harlan County Cold Case Unit entered its periodic review cycle of long-standing unresolved files. Following a new statewide Kentucky protocol designed to leverage modern forensic advancements, the Emily Ward file was classified in the medium priority group no body, no clear suspect, but sealed evidence and unresolved suspicions of foul play. The investigator assigned to the review, Sergeant David Hensley, began re-examining the entire original investigative file, Room 15 diagrams, witness statements, 1990 search routes, and the catalog of never-analyzed evidence. Upon opening the sealed storage box, he noted that the evidence items had been well preserved: the carpet fragment with dark stains, paper towels still carrying the cleaning chemical odor, the glass tumbler collected from the nightstand, the dark fabric scrap found under the bed, residue samples from around the sink, the bent curtain rod, and the detached bed frame wood piece. Many items had been marked pending future testing in the 1990 report, precisely what made them the most suitable candidates for re-evaluation using modern DNA technology. Hensley recognized that previous technical limitations could now be overcome, especially with the ability to extract trace DNA from fabric fibers, drinking glass surfaces, and absorbent soft materials like carpet. He reviewed each item to assess analysis potential. The carpet fragment was the top candidate because the stains might contain biological traces inseparable in 1990. The glass tumbler had cloudy interior residue potentially retaining epithelial cells. The wet paper towels could contain a mixture of user cells. The dark fabric scrap might carry DNA not belonging to hotel staff. Sink residue samples could identify biological or chemical origins. The curtain rod and bed frame piece could hold skin cells if gripped or forcefully impacted. Each item was re-photographed by Hensley to create a new 2014 standard file, then cross-checked against the 1990 report to verify the chain of custody remained intact with no unauthorized opening or substitution. After confirming chain of custody integrity, he compiled a list of evidence eligible for DNA analysis and submitted it to the cold case supervisor. The list was approved within the week, as Kentucky was running a program to fund testing of cold cases without bodies, partly due to advances in trace-level tracking from federal labs. Next, the cold case unit prepared a transfer request to the Kentucky State Forensic Laboratory in Frankfort. Transport followed strict protocol. Each item placed in isolation boxes resealed with new tamper-evident tape, labeled with case code and checkout time. Hensley personally oversaw the handover and briefed the lab that the initial goal was not to find victim DNA, but to detect any foreign DNA still present on the evidence, something that could open new investigative leads after 24 years of deadlock. Once the lab confirmed receipt of all evidence, the cold case unit updated the file, assigned a reinvestigation case number, created a cross-reference list with 1990 data, updated the list of witnesses for potential re-interview, and retrieved prior contact information for Cole Maddox and Shannon Reeves. An internal meeting was held to define the focus of the reinvestigation phase. 1. Evaluate potential foreign DNA on evidence. 2. Re-examine old statements, especially timeline gaps. 3. Check whether the two companions had any notable legal records or behavioral changes from 1990 to 2014. 4. Compile a list of individuals present around Pine Mountain Lodge at the time of the incident. Hensley also requested checks of missing persons reports, accidents, or suspected violence in the Harlan area from 1990 to 1990 to identify any matches possibly related to body movement and avenue previously limited by resources. As the re-evaluation began, the cold case unit officially opened Reinvestigation File Ward 2014 and elevated the case from passive storage to active status, granting access to modern data sources such as CODIS, mixture analysis, and molecular trace retrieval. Reopening the file also authorized requests for old registration records from Pine Mountain Lodge and nearby businesses in 1990. Though some paper records had faded over time, they could still provide lists of people present in the area during Emily's disappearance window. The file reopening report concluded that analyzing the evidence with new technology was the first potential breakthrough capable of breaking the multi-decade impasse. When the evidence left storage under 2014 seals, the Emily Ward case officially entered a new investigative phase for the first time since 1990. Real grounds for hope of resolution began to exist. In early 2015, when the Kentucky State Forensic Laboratory completed detailed analysis of the evidence submitted from the Emily Ward case, the Cold Case Unit received notification of high evidentiary value DNA results and a request for an emergency meeting with the lead investigator. The full results arrived in a report exceeding 60 pages, accompanied by molecular analysis tables, sample comparison charts, and extraction method descriptions. Each item was presented by category: carpet fragment, paper towels, glass tumbler, fabric scrap, residue sample, and curtain rod. The report showed the 1990 carpet fragment contained a DNA mixture from two sources. The first source matched Emily Ward's reference DNA taken from a retained family hair sample. The second was clearly male DNA, with a 100% genetic profile match to Cole Maddox's DNA record, which had been entered into the system from his 2002 military medical file. The presence of Cole's DNA at the location matching the anomalous stain on the carpet was deemed legally significant, especially since it was under the foot of the bed, not a typical activity area like a tabletop or doorknob. The analysis team also noted the dark fabric scrap found under the bed contained primarily Emily's DNA, with a small unresolvable mixture leaning toward male epithelial cells. Although the mixture was insufficient for full comparison, allele ratios overlapped with several loci in Cole's sample. The glass tumbler from the nightstand showed mixed DNA traces, partly matching Emily and partly matching Cole. This was not unusual given shared occupancy, but the upside-down position and uneven interior residue suggested possible post-incident manipulation. The wet paper towels in the trash contained skin cells and cleaning chemical traces. DNA extracted from the skin cells was Emily's, with no Shannon DNA present, but a low-level male skin cell component matched Cole. The sink residue sample, after analysis, showed a female DNA mixture along with strong commercial cleaning chemical traces incompatible with Pine Mountain Lodge's standard products. The bent curtain rod and detached bed frame piece yielded insufficient DNA quality, but a few single loci matched Cole's genetic code and were classified as supportive but not standalone. Summarizing the results, the lab stated, the presence of Cole Maddox's DNA in locations inconsistent with normal occupancy indicates probable significant contact between Cole and the victim at the scene. The Cold Case Unit immediately convened a meeting to reevaluate the entire 1990 file in light of the new data. Investigator Hensley restructured the old timeline. Emily left the room around 2000, 10:02 a.m. Both Cole and Shannon claimed no further contact with her after that. No witness saw Cole leave the room that night, and no reasonable explanation existed for Cole's DNA appearing under the bed, in the carpet stain, and on cleaning solution soaked paper towels. In 1990, the lack of DNA technology left these traces merely anomalous. In 2015, they formed a unified chain of evidence severely undermining Cole's statement. Shannon appeared in none of the recovered DNA samples, consistent with her claim of not touching those areas, but simultaneously making Cole's role stand out more prominently. One issue raised at the meeting was whether Cole's DNA presence could be explained innocently, shared living, touching objects, or normal room movement. However, item locations and types ruled out most such explanations. The carpet fragment was hidden under the bedfoot. Paper towels with male DNA and cleaner suggested cleanup activity. The dark fabric, scrap, and sink residue both pointed to post-event contact involving injury or scene alteration. All evidence converged on one conclusion. Cole's claim of falling asleep immediately after Emily left the room could not be true. The reevaluation report on Cole's involvement concluded that he was the last person confirmed to have had direct contact with the victim in room 15, and his role in intervention, control, or harm cannot be ruled out. When the file was forwarded to the Harlan County Prosecutor's Office for next steps, the Cold Case Unit included a formal recommendation: re-interview Cole Maddox as a person of significant interest. Newly discovered DNA has fundamentally altered the case nature. The legal division accepted the file, requesting the investigative team prepare a 1990 statement versus 2015 DNA results comparison chart and assess feasibility of obtaining search warrants for property, vehicles, or additional biological samples from coal. Although no body had yet been found, the prosecutor noted that the confrontation between statements and physical evidence had surpassed the old impasse threshold, creating legal grounds to expand the criminal investigation in a possible deception, obstruction, or harm. Upon signing acceptance, the prosecutor wrote, "The 2015 DNA results represent the first forensic breakthrough capable of reconstructing the scene on the night of September 14, 1990. The Emily Ward case, frozen for over 2 decades, officially entered a phase of converging new evidence that demanded re-examination of everything once thought inexplicable." In the summer of 2015, just as the DNA results had returned the Emily Ward case to active investigation status, an entirely unforeseen event occurred about 14 miles northeast of Pine Mountain Lodge. A ranger from the Kentucky Division of Forestry, while surveying deep forest near the slopes of Black Mountain, the state's highest and most rugged range, discovered what appeared to be human skeletal remains scattered among leaf litter beneath a low rock ledge. The location was more than 1.5 miles off the main trail, hidden from all usual paths, and accessible only by crossing dense, thick forest. Once confirming it was not animal bone, he immediately flagged the area, contacted supervision, and notified the Harlan County Sheriff's Office. Within less than 2 hours, the scene was secured, and the cold case unit was dispatched due to potential connection to any unsolved disappearance in the prior 3 decades. Upon forensic technical team arrival, they found fully skeletonized human remains consisting of the main skeletal frame, many disarticulated vertebrae, and signs of post-mortem scavenging by wildlife. Scattered evidence at the scene included a faded dark green fabric remnant, a small women's shoe with deteriorated sole, a metal button near the left rib area, and several nylon fragments once part of a small bag. Most notably, a tarnished metal necklace lay under shallow soil, its shape matching the description family provided in the 1990 missing persons file for Emily. The investigative team photographed the overall scene, sketched the layout, and collected each item in priority order, placing everything in specialized containment boxes to avoid disturbing bone structure. Based on bone fragment distribution, forensics determined the body had likely been supine initially, then scattered by long-term animal activity. No signs indicated deliberate burial. Soil cover resulted solely from natural accumulation over multiple seasons of rain. The site sat in a small valley, far from vehicle access, virtually impossible for casual passers-by. Moving a body to such a remote location would require vehicle transport and time, raising suspicion that the victim may have been brought here shortly after death or after temporary storage elsewhere. When the skeletal remains reached the Kentucky State Medical Examiner's office, identification began. Due to 25 years of decomposition, all soft tissue was gone, forcing reliance entirely on dental records and skeletal structure. Emily's dental records, fortunately retained by family and submitted in the 1990 file, noted 2 distinctive features: slightly left offset upper incisors and a unique silver filling-in tooth number 14. Comparison with the recovered dentition showed complete matches on both features. Forensics also recorded bone age, height, and skeletal proportions consistent with Emily at time of disappearance. Supplemental analysis showed femoral epiphyseal closure before age 25, aligning with Emily's age at vanishing. After completing comparisons, the examination report concluded the skeletal remains recovered at Black Mountain belonged to Emily Ward, missing since September 1990. Officially, for the first time in 25 years, the missing persons case became a death investigation. Once identity was confirmed, the cold case unit immediately returned to the Black Mountain scene to expand evidence collection. They located additional small fabric samples matching the initial large piece, a plastic button a few meters away, and faint arc-shaped soil impressions, possibly old tire marks but undatable. The rugged terrain and high humidity severely limited trace reconstruction potential, but police documented all data to prevent information loss. At the medical examiner's office, bone analysis to determine cause of death commenced. However, after years of weathering, bones retained no soft tissue or superficial injury marks. Several rib locations showed fractures, but could not be determined ante-mortem or post-mortem. No bullets, metal fragments, or cut marks were found on bone surfaces. The final forensic report concluded, cause of death cannot be determined due to advanced decomposition. However, peripheral discovery circumstances indicate non-natural death. With recovery of remains and identity confirmation, the Emily Ward case officially changed status From a disappearance to a death likely involving serious criminality, the supplemental investigative report to the prosecutor's office emphasized: 1. 2015 DNA results confirmed Cole Maddox's presence in unreasonable locations in room 15. 2. Cole's statements contradicted physical evidence. 3. Discovery of Emily's body in remote mountains completely eliminated voluntary departure. 4. Body location indicated removal from initial scene. 5. Death nature abnormal with no random indicators. The Harlan County Sheriff's Office immediately activated a shift to major crimes investigation, classifying the case as homicide suspicion, directing the cold case unit to conduct fresh evaluations of all prior witnesses, with particular focus on Cole Maddox, finding the body forced re-examination of every prior assumption and open investigative avenues no longer constrained by prior lack of direct evidence. The prosecutor's office requested a new question set for Cole Shannon, 1990 hotel staff, and acquaintances of the trio to probe motive, timing, and possible means of transporting the body to Black Mountain. With Emily's skeletal remains located, the case irrevocably advanced. From an indefinite missing persons file spanning more than 2 decades to the emergence of clear physical evidence of a 1990 death, investigators quickly concluded could not be accidental, could not be natural, and could not be a spontaneous event lacking human intervention. Confirming the manner of death transformed the entire investigative direction from victim search to criminal perpetrator pursuit, compelling the cold case unit to reanalyze every timeline point, movement area, and body transport feasibility. It was precisely from this turning point that the investigative team recognized the need to reconstruct the entire route from Pine Mountain Lodge to the location of the skeletal remains on the slopes of Black Mountain. To accomplish this, they coordinated with the Kentucky Division of Forestry, the state's terrain analysis team, and the Forensic Division to create a detailed geographic model, enabling determination of the victim's possible movement and the plausible routes the perpetrator could have used to transport the body to one of the most remote areas in eastern Kentucky. Pine Mountain Lodge sits at moderate elevation with numerous semi-natural trails created by tourists, while Black Mountain, the highest point in the state, is rugged mountainous terrain featuring steep rocky slopes, fallen trees, narrow valleys, paths naturally segmented by stream channels, and untouched old-growth forest. The terrain analysis team first established the straight-line distance from the lodge to the remains discovery site, nearly 14 miles, equivalent to more than 22 kilometers. However, the mountainous forest made straight-line travel impossible. Any actual route would have to cross at least 4 hazardous grade slopes, 2 deep valleys, and 1 dense old-growth forest section where nighttime movement was virtually impossible. From this, investigators concluded there was no realistic possibility for a person without equipment, in an injured or panicked state, to travel independently from Pine Mountain Lodge to Black Mountain, especially within the few hours after leaving room 15. Forensic terrain analysis completely ruled out the hypothesis of the victim voluntarily leaving the lodge, and even more so, reaching the body recovery site on her own. The analysis team continued building models of plausible body transport routes based on the trail network existing in 1990. 3 primary routes were identified. 1. The Eastern Trail route, descending into a small valley then looping up to Black Mountain. 2. The Northern Hunter Use Trail. 3. A combined route utilizing trails and an abandoned old logging road. The first route featured numerous steep inclines with very low nighttime feasibility. The second was shorter but suitable only for foot travel, not for transporting heavy weight. The third, though longer, had distinct advantages. Much of the route could be accessed by pickup truck or off-road vehicle common vehicles in Kentucky during the 1980s to 1990s. When cross-referencing the skeletal discovery location, the analysis team noted it was only about 0.4 miles from the old logging road, meaning a vehicle could plausibly have stopped at that trail access, with the perpetrator then dragging or carrying the body deeper into the woods to avoid detection from the main path. This explained the presence of several faint semicircular impressions in the soil near the scene, likely old tire marks weathered over time, but still faintly discernible. When overlaying the topographic map with body transport feasibility, the third route was rated the most logical. To strengthen the model, the cold case unit integrated Room 15 forensic data with the timeline of the night of September 14-15, 1990. Analysis showed the last confirmed sighting of Emily alive was around 10:15 a.m. per the Room 12 witness. This was followed by the sound of something heavy being dragged. Heard by the room 18 witness around 3 a.m., the forensic team determined the carpet stain could contain biological mixture residue from an event in room 15, consistent with the scenario of the victim being incapacitated or injured right there. From this, the analysis team reconstructed a possible sequence of actions in the room. 1. An incident leading to injury or death occurring between 1:20 and 2 a.m. 2. Scene cleanup using towels and bathroom cleaner from 2 to 3 a.m. based on chemical samples in the paper towels. 3. The heavy dragging sound at 3 a.m., corresponding to moving the body out of the room. 4. Subsequent transport of the body from Pine Mountain Lodge to Black Mountain during the pre-dawn hours. When cross-checked against actual terrain and routes, the investigative team concluded the perpetrator likely used a personal vehicle parked at the rear of the lodge, then loaded the body by dragging or carrying it out the back door. The exit, the 1990 desk clerk had confirmed, was sometimes left ajar. This was a critical detail because it explained why no one saw Emily or any suspicious person leaving through the main entrance. The completed forensic timeline model significantly altered the case perception. It not only established the victim was removed from the lodge in a very narrow pre-dawn window, but also proved transporting the body to Black Mountain required time, a vehicle, and local terrain knowledge. The perpetrator had to know: 1. The old logging road existed. 2. Vehicle access near the valley was possible. 3. How to navigate dense forest sections without leaving obvious traces. This dramatically increased the likelihood the perpetrator was someone familiar with the local area. To pinpoint the crime timeline as accurately as possible, the cold case unit compared average travel speeds on the old logging road in 1990, based on ranger reports, approximately 10 to 15 miles per hour with an off-road vehicle, faster with a light pickup. If the perpetrator left Pine Mountain Lodge at 3:15 to 3:30 a.m., they could reach the Black Mountain vicinity around 20 a.m. Offloading the body and dragging it 0.4 miles into the woods would take about 20 to 30 minutes, consistent with bone distribution and evidence placement at the scene. From this, the forensic model established the crime timeline: victim death between 1:20 to 2 a.m. on September 15, 1990. Body removal from the lodge between 2:30 to 3:15 a.m. Transport to Black Mountain between 4:35 a.m. before daylight. Integrating all forensic data with a timeline, the cold case unit concluded criminal activity occurred in room 15 with immediate cover-up, directly contradicting the 1990 statements. The precision of the terrain model, combined with DNA results, shifted the case file from no direct evidence to sufficient grounds to establish intentional criminal conduct, including homicide and body disposal, to conceal. With the transport route, required vehicle, and crime timeline identified, the Emily Ward case advanced to a focused investigative phase, where the central question was no longer where the victim went, but who took her to a place no one could find for 25 years. After finalizing the forensic terrain model and establishing the crime timeline along with the body transport route, the cold case unit determined the need to re-interview Shannon Reeves, who for 25 years had consistently maintained she knew nothing about what happened after Emily left room 15. This summons followed new investigative procedure: formal notification requiring appearance at the Harlan County Sheriff's Office to provide supplemental statements in a case now reclassified as suspected major crime. When Shannon entered the interview room, the team did not begin with open questions as in 1990. Instead, they immediately presented her with the new forensic findings. On the table were printouts of the DNA results from the carpet, paper towels, and glass tumbler, topographic maps of Pine Mountain and Black Mountain, and the reconstructed timeline based on 2015 data. Investigator Hensley explained clearly, Cole's DNA appeared in unreasonable locations in room 15. Evidence showed aggressive cleaning with strong chemicals in the bathroom, and Emily's body was found in a location impossible to reach on her own, nearly 14 miles from the lodge. Initially, Shannon remained silent, hands clenched, avoiding eye contact with the documents. But when Hensley displayed the map showing the only logical route to transport the body to Black Mountain, along with cross-referencing the 30 a.m. heavy dragging sound heard by a witness, she began to lose composure. The investigator posed the key question: "Are you sure you want to continue standing by your 1990 statement when new evidence shows the opposite?" After several minutes of prolonged silence, Shannon began breathing heavily and requested to tell everything she remembered. At this stage, Shannon's supplemental statement was completely different from her original one. She admitted that on the night of September 14, after returning from dinner, tension rose among the three. Emily and Cole argued in the room initially over work issues and some lingering personal matters. Shannon described the argument escalating when Emily said she wanted to end all contact with both of them. Cole became heated, raising his voice, and Emily responded sharply. Shannon insisted she tried to intervene, but was pushed aside by Cole. After about 20 minutes of arguing, Emily attempted to leave the room, which matched the hallway witness seeing her depart. However, according to Shannon, Emily returned to the room a few minutes later because she forgot a personal item. Upon re-entering, the argument resumed and turned physical. Shannon described hearing an object hit the bed and someone fall to the floor. She said that when she turned around, she saw Emily lying motionless near the foot of the bed, with Cole standing beside her, breathing heavily, face flushed. Shannon claimed she saw no blood, but Emily did not respond when called. She stated, "I thought she had passed out. I didn't think anything worse had happened." When asked why she did not call for emergency help, Shannon said Cole forbade her, stating it would ruin everyone's life. Afterward, according to the new statement, Cole used towels and bathroom cleaner to wipe away traces on the floor and bed. Shannon admitted she handed paper towels to Cole but did not personally wipe anything, although subsequent forensics showed no Shannon DNA on those items, consistent with her supplemental account. When asked about the heavy dragging sound at 3 a.m., Shannon lowered her head and said Cole had dragged something heavy from inside the room to the back door, then told her to stay in the room and not follow. She did not clearly see what Cole dragged, but when the investigator asked, "Did you think it was Emily?" Shannon did not speak, but tears flowed down her face. Recorded in the transcript is a nonverbal indication of agreement with that possibility. Shannon also confirmed Cole left the room a second time around 30:30 a.m., and returned about an hour later, sweating profusely and completely silent. Hensley asked, "Do you know what vehicle Cole used?" Shannon replied they had arrived at the lodge in the silver sedan, and when Cole returned, she heard the engine shut off right outside. This reinforced the likelihood Cole used the car to transport the body. Shannon further stated that after returning, Cole told her to pack up and prepare to leave normally in the morning. She said she was too terrified to object, and did not believe Emily was dead until the remains were reported found. In the final part of the interview, when the team presented the timeline points and asked if she denied any of them, Shannon shook her head. Her entire supplemental statement was recorded, signed, and entered into the file. This was the first time in 25 years that one of the two people present in room 15 acknowledged a physical altercation, confirmed cleanup activity, and indirectly described Cole's body-moving actions. This statement became the pivotal piece legitimizing the forensic timeline chain and significantly narrowed legal debate over Cole being the last person to interact with Emily in a life-threatening state. When the interview concluded, Shannon was informed her statement would be entered into the charging file and used as corroborating evidence with forensic reports to reconstruct events in room 15 and subsequent actions. This marked the point where the cold case unit determined the 1990 statement defense shield had finally been broken. After Shannon Reeves's supplemental statement shattered the entire foundation of the 1990 accounts, the cold case unit immediately planned to recall Cole Maddox for direct confrontation, the first time in 25 years with full forensic terrain and new witness evidence. Cole was invited to the sheriff's office as a person with relevant information. But in reality, the session was structured entirely as a high-stakes interrogation. When Cole sat down, investigator Hensley did not ask open questions but placed 3 file folders directly in front of him. The 2015 DNA results, the map of the body transport route to Black Mountain, and a copy of Shannon Reeves's latest statement. The initial phase of the confrontation focused on DNA evidence. Hensley pointed to the carpet fragment analysis report. Your DNA appears in the stain under the foot of the bed. The only way that happens is if you had contact with that area during the incident. Cole reacted by leaning back, crossing his arms, and saying he didn't remember touching anything, and suggesting DNA could have transferred to the carpet as the group moved around the room. The investigator moved to the second item, paper towels with cleaning traces and Cole's DNA. This evidence was used to clean up after an injury event. How do you explain that? Cole replied slowly. I might have touched it earlier. I don't remember. This response was noted as evasive, inconsistent. When confronted with the mixed DNA glass tumbler, Cole insisted it was normal. but forensics showed the glass was upside down with uneven residue, inconsistent with ordinary use. Tension escalated when the investigator opened the Black Mountain terrain map and detailed the most logical route used to transport Emily's body to the discovery site. Cole furrowed his brow, trying to stay calm, but when Hensley pointed out that route was only a short distance from areas Cole frequented in 1990, Cole began shifting posture, voice quickening in denial. "I've never been there. I know nothing about Black Mountain." The investigator proceeded to the most critical confrontation, Shannon's new statement. Placing the printed statement on the table, Hensley read sections about the argument, the sound of something falling, Emily collapsing to the floor, the cleanup actions, and the heavy dragging at 3 a.m. Each piece was linked by forensic or timeline corroboration. Cole's body stiffened, hands gripping the chair edge, eyes avoiding the document. When asked, "Do you deny any part of this statement?" Cole answered, "She's lying. I didn't do anything." But the investigator had prepared a forensic timeline diagram displaying all Room 15 activity from 1015 to 30 a.m. when Hensley pointed to the blank period, from 1:20 to 300 a.m. "You said you were asleep, but your DNA is present in locations only contactable during an incident. Explain." Cole was silent for over 20 seconds, then tried deflection. "Emily left the room. I don't know what happened after. Anyone could have come back." This was immediately refuted when the investigator reminded him no witness or evidence recorded any stranger's presence beyond the three. No foreign fingerprints, no foreign DNA, no movement pattern fitting an intruder hypothesis. Moving to logical action analysis, the team presented the reconstructed sequence. 1. Altercation in the room shortly after Emily returned for her item. Number sporty. 2. Injury causing incapacitation between 1020 to 1:40 a.m. 3. Cleanup of stains using towels and cleaner. 4. Dragging the body to the back door around 3 a.m. 5. Loading the body into the vehicle and leaving Pine Mountain Lodge via the unmonitored exit. 6. Travel along the old logging road to Black Mountain from 3:30 to 4:20 a.m. 7. Placement of the body at the final location. When confronted point by point, Cole could not explain the matches among forensics, timeline, and Shannon's statement. One key moment recorded in the transcript occurred when the investigator said, "You never mentioned Emily returned to the room. But now Shannon states she came back after a few minutes. How would she know she wasn't present in the room during the incident?" Cole bit his lip, eyes darting, trying to maintain his old statement, but facing unavoidable logical contradiction. The pivotal moment came when the investigator presented evidence of the 3000 heavy dragging sound detail downplayed in 1990, but now perfectly matching forensic timing. Hensley asked, "Do you know what that dragging sound was?" Cole answered quickly, "No idea. I didn't hear anything." But when asked to describe what he did between 2:20 and 3 a.m., Cole replied, "I slept, then got up to use the bathroom." This contradicted bathroom data showing cleaning traces. Cole's statement was recorded as serious inconsistencies, unexplained changes, and incompatible with evidence. As the interview stretched into the third hour, Cole began losing verbal control. One recorded remark was, "I didn't want that to happen. Things went too far." Though not admitting specific guilt, the statement showed awareness of the incident far beyond his original account. The investigator concluded the confrontation by informing Cole the file would be forwarded to the prosecutor for arrest warrant consideration, and he was not to leave the state without reporting. Immediately after the interview, the Cold Case Unit conducted a comprehensive assessment of Cole's role. The report determined, 1. Cole was the last person confirmed to have direct interaction with a living victim. 2. His DNA appeared at key incident and cover-up locations. 3. His statements conflicted with forensics, timeline, and Shannon's statement. 4. No other evidence suggested a third-party suspect. This made Cole the sole primary suspect. Arrest warrant documentation was drafted that night, including DNA results table, Shannon's statement, forensic terrain reconstruction model, detailed timeline, contradictory statement comparison chart, body transport route map, and movement feasibility analysis. The report's conclusion to the prosecutor stated clearly, based on scientific evidence, supplemental statements, and timeline analysis, there is probable cause to establish Cole Maddox's direct involvement in Emily Ward's death. That day's confrontation became the turning point when the entire investigative system shifted from suspicion to establishing legal grounds for prosecution. After completing the arrest warrant application file with full legal grounds based on the DNA results, Shannon Reeves's supplemental statement, and the forensic timeline analysis, the Harlan County Prosecutor's Office forwarded the file to the state-level court for review. The arrest warrant for Cole Maddox was signed the following week, along with a search warrant for his residence in Pasco County, Florida, where he had relocated and lived for many years after leaving Kentucky. Simultaneously, a separate arrest warrant was issued for Shannon Reeves, now residing in Gainesville, Florida, for her role in aiding concealment of the crime in 1990 and for providing false statements during the investigation. A joint federal-state task force was assigned to execute the arrests, consisting of U.S. Marshals, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and representatives from Kentucky's Cold Case Unit. Cole's arrest occurred in the morning at 6:40 a.m. at his prefabricated home in a remote suburb of Pasco. As officers approached, Cole stepped out the door in a state of surprise with no signs of resistance. During the search of the residence, officers seized several items and documents considered relevant to reconstructing Cole's actions in 1990, an old Kentucky map with markings on eastern trails, a notebook containing notes about the Pine Mountain area from his college years, and an old hunting knife stored in the garage, though forensics had not yet determined its degree of connection to the case. Modern electronic devices such as a laptop and cell phone were also seized for examination of communication history and any documents possibly related to Cole's later monitoring of the case progress. At the same time, the task force in Gainesville executed the arrest of Shannon Reeves at her apartment complex. There was no resistance, but officers noted she appeared emotionally devastated and showed signs of having mentally prepared for arrest following the earlier comprehensive confrontation. The search of Shannon's apartment resulted in the seizure of several old documents related to her time living in Kentucky, residency papers from Lexington, photographs taken with Emily and Cole prior to 1990, and a few pages of personal notes indirectly referencing something that went too far during a mountain trip. These documents were deemed suitable to support Shannon's psychological state at the time of the incident, but were not direct evidence of criminal acts. After both were taken into custody, the Kentucky Prosecutor's Office formally announced charges against Cole Maddox for the offenses of kidnapping resulting in death, tampering with evidence, abuse of a corpse, and providing false statements. Shannon Reeves was charged with lesser offenses, tampering with evidence, and hindering prosecution. When assigned defense attorneys contacted Shannon, they quickly recognized that the evidence against Cole was accumulating in an indefensible direction, and that Shannon's new statement, if complete and consistent, could secure her a significant plea reduction. The prosecutor's office offered a plea deal. Shannon would have to provide a full, detailed account of the entire sequence of events on the night of September 14 to 15 and all subsequent concealment actions. In exchange, more serious charges would be dropped, and she would face the minimum sentence within the range for obstruction of justice. After 3 days of attorney negotiations, Shannon agreed and signed the deal. Her statement this time was video recorded, given under oath, and fully consistent with the supplemental statement provided during the re-interview. She specifically described the sequence of the physical altercation, Emily's incapacitation after falling, Cole's cleanup actions, his dragging of a heavy object to the back door, hearing sounds resembling a body scraping the floor, and then the sound of a vehicle engine starting around 3 o'clock in the morning. Shannon also described Cole's panic state upon returning to the room and his instructions to pack up the next morning as if nothing had happened. The statement was regarded as having significant legal value and became one of the cornerstones of the prosecution file. After both suspects were transported back to Kentucky, the Emily Ward case file was officially transferred to state court with an evidence catalog that included DNA results, items collected from room 15, maps of the body transport route, 1990 witness statements, Shannon Reeves's 2015 supplemental statement, terrain maps, and the forensic timeline model. The prosecutor requested consolidation of Cole's charges into a single indictment because the acts were part of the same chain of events and shared the common purpose of concealing the initial crime. The court approved, determining the case contained sufficient elements for state-level trial. The arrest phase was complete. Evidence and statements were in prosecutorial hands, and for the first time since 1990, the Emily Ward case entered the legal phase, no longer suspicion, but a fully prepared criminal prosecution ready for court. The trial of Cole Maddox opened in early March 2016 at the Kentucky Supreme Court, drawing significant community attention because it was a disappearance case spanning more than 2 decades with modern forensic evidence presented to the public for the first time. On the very first day, the prosecutor presented a case summary, emphasizing that the entire chain of scientific evidence, witness statements, and terrain data aligned into a unified criminal pathway with no remaining reasonable gaps. They began by introducing the DNA test results obtained from Room 15, including microscopic blood traces on the wooden desk edge and fibers retained in the mattress padding, all matching Emily Ward's DNA profile and Cole's DNA on related items. The prosecutor described the forensic analysis process conducted by the lab to 2014-2015 standards, clarifying how they extracted DNA from evidence that could not be analyzed in 1990. Next, the prosecutor presented a detailed timeline constructed from 1990 statements combined with Shannon Reeves's 2015 new statement, along with time data from the hotel desk log, landline phone records, and hallway witness reports. In this timeline, they clearly identified 3 key points: the time Emily last left the room near midnight, the time Cole and Shannon left Pine Mountain Lodge after 3 a.m., and the nearly 3-hour period Cole could not reasonably explain in his original statement. Coordinated with terrain maps presented by experts in court, the prosecutor explained that the route from the lodge to the 2015 skeletal discovery site on Black Mountain was the only feasible path if traveled by pickup truck in pre-dawn conditions, given the steep and restricted access terrain. The state terrain expert confirmed that the old trail segment had once been a common logging access route before closure in 1994, consistent with someone familiar with the local area, using it to transport a heavy object deep into the woods without drawing attention. The prosecutor then presented the skeletal examination results, clarifying that Emily's remains were determined to date from 1990 through dental comparison, while ruling out voluntary movement due to the location and terrain characteristics being completely inconsistent with a lone pedestrian. To illustrate the linkage of the event chain, the prosecutor displayed a forensic flow diagram, starting point, intermediate points, and endpoint. This 3-layer map was projected for the jury, helping them visualize how all the facts interlocked into a coherent model. When the prosecutor called Shannon Reeves as the key witness, the courtroom grew tense. Even though she had signed a plea deal, retelling the September 1990 night under oath remained a critical detail. Shannon testified consistently with her prior account. A physical altercation occurred between Cole and Emily in the room, her panic upon seeing Emily motionless on the floor, the hasty cleanup directed by Cole, and Cole leaving the room around 3 o'clock in the morning carrying a heavy object she believed to be Emily's body. This testimony was reinforced by the prosecutor immediately cross-referencing it in front of the jury with the forensic timeline, terrain map, and DNA results, each point matching precisely. The prosecutor also clarified the consistency between Shannon's statement and the physical traces found in the room, particularly the localized cleaning marks on the wooden floor and desk surface, consistent with her description of Cole instructing her to wipe down areas to avoid suspicion. During cross-examination by the defense attorney, they attempted to argue that Shannon had motive to minimize her own liability and might exaggerate Cole's role, but the prosecutor countered by presenting independent forensic results proving Shannon's statement merely confirmed what science had already established. The jury followed the entire body of evidence with intense focus, especially when the prosecutor reconstructed a 3D model of the forest route and explained why only someone operating the vehicle Cole owned at the time could have accessed the body disposal area. Everything was presented in logical sequence: motive from conflict, incident in the room, to attempted cover-up, body transport, to abandonment in inaccessible terrain, flight from the state, and maintenance of false statements for 26 years. By the end of the presentation, the prosecutor asked the jury to evaluate the overall coherence, not just individual pieces of evidence, but the complete fit among them. When the entire forensic timeline statement terrain chain aligned into an unexplainable sequence under any innocent interpretation, they concluded that Cole Maddox bore responsibility for Emily Ward's death and the subsequent actions to conceal it. The sentencing hearing took place on the morning of April 18, 2016, in the main courtroom of the Kentucky Supreme Court, where the jury had spent many days deliberating the full chain of evidence and arguments from both sides, and the court now entered the final phase to establish criminal responsibility in the 26-year disappearance of Emily Ward. The atmosphere in the courtroom was markedly more solemn than during the trial days. Everyone recognized this as the moment to close a file that had been frozen for decades and reopened only through advances in forensic science and the persistence of the cold case unit. When the presiding judge entered, the room rose, and once everyone was seated, he directed the defendants, Cole Maddox and Shannon Reeves, to stand before the bench to hear the final judgment. The judge reiterated that the sentence was based on the totality of evidence presented at trial. DNA results showing Cole's presence at locations with the victim's blood traces, Shannon's statement aligning with scene evidence, terrain analysis, and body transport route reconstruction, along with indirect evidence from Cole's deceptive behavior and inconsistencies in his statements from 1990 to 2015. He also emphasized that the jury unanimously concluded Cole Maddox had taken Emily Ward's life and intentionally concealed the consequences of that act, and that state law prescribed punishment corresponding to the severity of the offense of kidnapping resulting in death. One of the harshest sentencing frameworks for cases where the victim could no longer be saved. After the legal findings, the judge read the sentencing. Cole Maddox was sentenced to life imprisonment without possibility of parole. In accordance with the state prosecutor's recommendation, and consistent with the risk assessment of recidivism based on the defendant's long-term behavioral record, Cole remained silent throughout the entire trial. No apology, no reaction, and no glance toward the victim's family. The imposition of life without parole was explained by the judge as necessary to fully reflect the brutality of concealing the body, deliberately obstructing the investigation, and prolonging the family's suffering for decades. Next, the judge turned to sentencing for Shannon Reeves. Although Shannon participated in concealment, the court acknowledged her role in providing critical testimony that resolved the case after 26 years of deadlock. The judge listed the mitigating factors clearly. She did not directly cause the death, acted under fear and domination by Cole at the time of the incident, and had entered a cooperation agreement providing full information. Her statement demonstrated high truthfulness and consistency with scientific evidence. Therefore, the court sentenced Shannon Reeves to 17 years imprisonment per the plea deal, with the condition that she serve at least 85% of the term before eligibility for parole review. When the sentence was read, Shannon bowed her head, neither objecting nor justifying, only maintaining a tense but accepting expression. This was the agreed-upon sentence and the outcome she had anticipated since deciding to cooperate with the prosecution. After both defendants were escorted from the courtroom, the judge declared the trial proceedings officially concluded. He announced that the Emily Ward case file disappearance in 1990, skeletal remains discovery in 2015, prosecution in 2016, was now designated, resolved, and closed, with all trial evidence to be archived per protocol for future legal reference. The prosecutor noted the court's decision aligned with the full chain of evidence and thanked the cold case unit investigative team for their persistence in pursuing 1990 evidence, especially when contemporary testing technology was insufficient for analysis. The investigative agency representative confirmed the file was officially marked "Cold Case Solved," and this was one of Harlan County's longest-standing cases resolved through the combination of new testimony, terrain analysis, and modern forensic DNA. In the final moment, before the judge left the bench, the jury was discharged after weeks of intense service. They exited the courtroom in silence, carrying a heavy but resolute sense that their verdict rested on objective truth and fair scientific analysis. As the courtroom doors closed, the 3-month trial reached its end, and the case was officially recorded as fully resolved, closing a nearly 3-decade investigative journey. The case of Emily Ward, a young woman who vanished in 1990 in Harlan County, Kentucky, only solved after 26 years thanks to modern DNA technology, the persistence of the cold case unit, and reanalysis of old evidence reminds us of very real lessons in contemporary American society, where disappearances still occur and the justice system must continually race against time, technology, and human limitations. The story clearly demonstrates one thing: truth does not disappear, it is only temporarily concealed, and any small detail like microscopic blood traces on the edge of the desk in room 15, or fibers left in the mattress, can become decisive when technology advances sufficiently. This is a powerful reminder that in modern life, when we believe everything can be erased, science always moves forward, and justice may arrive late, but rarely abandons its pursuit. From a community perspective, the fact that the two suspects, Cole Maddox and Shannon Reeves, remained silent for many years while Emily's family waited hopelessly for news reflects a familiar challenge in American society. Sometimes those closest to the victim hold the most critical pieces, yet fear, guilt, or psychological pressure prevent them from speaking. When Shannon decided to testify a second time in 2015, It not only opened new investigative avenues, but also proved that truth spoken late can still rescue a case from being forgotten. In today's world, this becomes a reminder for every individual. If you witness something abnormal, speak up. Silence only shields wrongdoing and harms the innocent. Finally, Kentucky's reform of its cold case system following the Emily Ward case is a lesson for every community in the United States. Investing in forensic science, properly storing evidence, and training modern investigators is not merely system improvement. It is the way to safeguard truth for the future. If you want to continue following cold cases solved after many decades like Emily Ward's story, remember to hit subscribe so you don't miss any investigative journeys. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video, where justice continues to shine through every clue that once seemed forgotten.